In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern for making this Amigurumi Brinjal, which makes a good add-on for your kids' play food or for vegetable basket decor. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this, I am using 4-ply cotton yarn along with a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let us begin by making the stem for the Brinjal. So for this, we are going to make an I-cord. So leave a little long tail end and then make a slip knot. Now hold this knot and wrap the tail end around the needle as shown in the video. So now you will have 2 loops on the needle. Yarn over and draw through both the loops. So that's an I-cord. Again repeat the same process. Wrap the tail end around the needle and then make a single stitch kind of stitch out of both the loops, and you're going to repeat this pattern to how much length of the stem you wanted to make. So usually some 6 to 7 times is good enough, starting from 5. So after you got the desired length, make chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. You can leave a small tail end, you don't have to put a very long tail end. So once the stitching is done, it will automatically take the shape of a nice hook. So it will be beautiful to watch it on the final product. Now once the stem is done, fasten off and put this aside. Now let's start making the sepal for the Brinjal. Again I am using the same green color yarn. Now begin with a magic ring. Wrap the working end in a loop around your finger and then drop a loop from the center, make chain 1. Now let's start making the first row. Into the center, make 10 single crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now close the magic ring and leave a small gap to attach the stem part into this hole. Now let's start making the second row. Insert your needle into the first stitch and then make 1 single stitch. Now if you want, you can put a stitch marker on the top of the first stitch to mark the beginning of the second row. And now for the second row, make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. So as we have 10 single stitches in first row, in second row also you will have 10 single crochet stitches. So that's 3, 4, 5, and then continue for 5 more stitches until the starting point. So here I am making the last single stitch of the second row, and then remove your stitch marker and let's start making the third row. Begin with 1 single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of third row. Now into the next stitch, make a single crochet increase. That's 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. So that's 1 and then the second one, both into the same stitch. And now we are going to repeat this pattern for 5 more times. So this is the second repetition. That's 1 single stitch and then 1 increase. Then the third repetition, 1 single stitch and 1 increase. Now the fourth repetition and then the fifth repetition. Finally, by the end of the third row, you will have 15 single crochet stitches. Now to give that point for the sepals, we are going to work in these 15 stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fourth row. So first off, begin by making a slip stitch. Then into the next stitch, make 1 single stitch, then 1 double crochet stitch into the same stitch. Now make chain 3, that's 1, 2 and 3. And now to make a picot, insert your needle back onto the top loops of the double crochet stitch and then draw the yarn through the double stitch and also the loop on the hook. So this will be a picot stitch. Now after completing the picot stitch, make one single stitch into the same stitch where we have done the previous 2 stitches. So this will give the first point for the sepal. Now make a slip stitch into the next stitch. So this is the pattern and this pattern is going to be repeated for 5 more times. So again start with the slip stitch. Now into the next stitch, make one single stitch and then 1 double crochet stitch. Now chain 3 and then insert the needle back into the double crochet stitch and then make a slip stitch. Now into the same stitch, make one more single crochet stitch. Now into the next stitch, make a slip stitch. So this gives the second point. Again for the third point, begin with a slip stitch and then you are going to repeat the same pattern for 3 more times. So that's the second point. And then now we are going to do the third point. So single stitch, 1 double crochet stitch, then chain 3, that's chain 1, chain 2 and chain 3, and then slip stitch back into the double crochet stitch to give the picot. And now one more single crochet stitch into the same stitch and then a slip stitch into the next stitch, and this completes the third point for the sepal. And for the fourth point, again begin with a slip stitch and then repeat it 2 more times. And now we are doing the last sepal, the last point of the sepal. So make a slip stitch onto the top of the double crochet stitch to complete a picot stitch and then one more single stitch into the same stitch, and this completes the fifth point. Make the last slip stitch. Now chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. You can trim it by leaving a little small tail end is good enough, like 2 to 3 inches is good enough. And now let's attach the stem to this sepal. Now first let's hide the tail end of the last tail end. Take the tail end into the tapestry needle and take it to the back side of the work. Insert the tail end across few stitches and then trim the excess thread close to the project. Once the tail end is snipped off, you will be left with only one starting tail end. Now attach the stem onto the top of the sepal again by using a tapestry needle. Just insert both the tail ends into the magic ring and then on the back side of the sepal attach them by making a few knots. Just a couple of knots is good enough. Don't make too many, which might create a gap in between the brinjal base and the sepal. So just a couple of knots, just a 2 is good enough. You don't have to trim the excess thread, just leave it like that. And then we are going to begin with the base of the brinjal. I am taking this purple shade, which is close enough for the shade of the brinjal. Begin with a magic ring and then chain 1. Now let us start by making the first row. So for this, begin with 10 single crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Once all the 10 stitches are done, pull the magic ring and close the center. Now for the second row, make one single crochet stitch on the top of the first stitch See the circle? It's nice, right? Insert the needle into the first stitch and then make the first single stitch. Now put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of the second row. Now for the second row, make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch. So first stitch is already done. Now this one is the second single stitch and then the third single stitch, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So this completes your second row. Now shape it a little bit and then let's start making row 3. So for this, remove the stitch marker, make one single crochet stitch into the next stitch and then put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the third row. And now into the next stitch, make one increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. And now repeat this pattern for 4 more times, that is a total of 5 times. So that's the second repetition, that's one single stitch and then one increase. Now the third repetition, one single stitch and one increase and then 2 more times until you reach the starting point. So once the last increase is also completed, this completes the third row with 15 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 4. So for this, make one single crochet stitch on the top of the next stitch and then put the stitch marker back. Now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch and we are going to repeat this pattern for the row 5 as well. As we are not doing any kind of increases, we will have 15 stitches in row 4 and row 5 as well. Just continue to make one single stitch and don't forget to take forward the stitch marker. After completing row 5, the shape will be like this. It's like a normal small cap kind of thing. And now let's add the stem and sepal on the top of the brinjal. So using a tapestry needle or you can even use a crochet hook needle. Poke the needle into the magic center circle where we have to attach the stem and sepal and pull all the tail ends from the center into the brinjal. And now turn your project inside out and secure them by making a couple of knots inside the brinjal. If you want, you can leave those tail ends within the project. If they are too many and obstructing you from working, just trim them close and just leave the tail ends inside. Do not cut them too close, that's good enough. Now for the next row, that's the 6th row, begin by making one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back. And now for 18th row, we have to make 4 single stitches. We have already made the first one and this one is the second single stitch. Now the third single stitch and then the fourth one. So after 4 single stitches into the next stitch, we have to make an increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. And this pattern has to be repeated 2 more times until the starting point. So 4 single stitch, increase, again 4 single stitch and increase. Now here I am making the last increase of row 6 and this completes the 6th row with 18 single crochet stitches. It will give you a small increase in the circle. Now remove the stitch marker and for row 17 begin by making one single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back and this marks the beginning of row 7. Now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch and we are going to repeat this pattern for row 8 and 9 as well. So which means we will have 18 single crochet stitches in row 7, row 8 and row 9. Just keep on making until you reach your 9th row. So here is the shape of a brinjal after completing 9 rows. It's looking cute, right? Don't worry about the moving portion on the top. We are going to secure it with a glue by the end of the project. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 10th row. So for this, make one single crochet stitch and put the stitch marker back, and we have to make 5 single stitches. So we have already made the first one, and then second stitch, third, fourth, and then the 5th one. So after 5 single stitches into the next stitch, make an increase. That's 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. And now repeat this pattern for 2 more times. That is a total of 3 times. So after making the last increase, you will be finishing your 10th row with 21 single crochet stitches. If you are having any doubt while working, just count for each row wherever you have got the doubt. Now for the next row, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. And for the 11th row, we have to make 6 single crochet stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now into the next stitch, make one increase, that is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. And now continue this pattern of 6 single stitches and increase throughout the row for 2 more times. And by the end of the 11th row, you will have 24 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 12th row. Begin by making one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of row 12. And now continue to make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch, and we are going to repeat this pattern for row 13 and row 14 as well. And as we do not have any kind of increases or decreases in all row 12, 13 and 14, you will have 24 single crochet stitches in all these 3 rows. So after completing 14 rows, this is how the shape looks like. Now let's start making row 15. For this, remove your stitch marker, make one single crochet stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 15th row. So for this, we have to make 4 single stitches. So one is already done. That's the second one, third, and then the 4th stitch. And now we have to make one invisible decrease. So for this invisible decrease, insert your needle into the front loops of the next 2 stitches and then drop a loop. Now make a single crochet stitch as usual. So that's your invisible decrease. And now we are going to repeat this pattern for 3 more times. That is a total of 4 times. So make 4 single crochet stitches and then we have to make an invisible decrease again. So insert your needle into the front loops of next 2 stitches. Now drop a loop and then make a single stitch. So this is the second repetition, and do this for 2 more times, and this completes your 15th row with 20 single stitches. So here I am making the last invisible decrease for row 15. Now for row 16, remove the stitch marker, make one single crochet stitch into the first stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 16th row. Now make 2 more single crochet stitches, which will give you total of 3 single stitches, and then make one invisible decrease. From here on, the shape of the circle will keep on decreasing until the closing point. So that's the decrease. And now repeat this pattern, 2 single stitches and decrease throughout the row for 4 times. And this completes your 16th row. So that's 2 and then 3. Again, one invisible decrease. And now repeat it for 2 more times. Here I am making the last invisible decrease for row 16. and you'll have 16 single crochet stitches by the end of this row. Now remove the stitch marker, and for row 17 begin with one single stitch and put the stitch marker back into the stitch. Then make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row, and as in 16th row we have 16 single crochet stitches, and in 17th row also you will have 16 single crochet stitches. Repeat it until you reach the starting stitch. Now for the 18th row, remove your stitch marker, and let's start by making one single crochet stitch into the first stitch, and then put the stitch marker back into the first stitch to mark the beginning of your 18th row. Now into the next stitch make one more single stitch, so that's 2 single crochet stitches, and then make one invisible decrease into the next 2 stitches, the front loops of next 2 stitches. So this set is going to be repeated for 4 more times. So that's 1 stitch, 2nd stitch, and then 1 invisible decrease, and repeat this for 2 more times until you reach the starting stitch. So that's the last invisible decrease for 18th row. Now stop your work here and let's add the stuffing into the toy. Take a good amount of Fiberfill and let's add stuffing into this. Take a good amount of Fiberfill and put the stuffing into the toy so that the shape is well maintained. You should not overstuff, and at the same time you should not understuff. So either way it will ruin your shape, so you have to be extra careful while putting the stuff into the stuffers. Once you have enough stuffing into the brinjal, this is how the shape looks like. And now let's start making the last row for this project. Row 19, begin by making a invisible decrease and then put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of 19th row. And in the last row you have total 6 invisible decreases. So the first invisible decrease is already done, and then this is the second invisible decrease, and then this one will be the third invisible decrease. So working the last row after putting the stuffing will be a little bit challenging. You need to get a hands-on practice to master this technique. So that's the 4th invisible decrease. This is the 5th invisible decrease, and finally the last 6th invisible decrease. Once all the invisible decreases are done, remove the stitch marker, and now into the the next stitch make a slip stitch. Now chain 1 and trim the excess thread by leaving a long tail end, as the brinjal will have a little dents on some parts, so I am just going to create that illusion of dents using this tail end. So just take a little bit long tail end, that is good enough for us to create those dents. So before that we are going to close the opening at the last row. So again with the help of a tapestry needle, insert the tail end into the tapestry needle and then pass this needle through the front loops of all the last 6 stitches in the last row. So you can count while doing this. That's 1, 2, that's 3, 4, 5, and finally the 6th one. Now pull the tail end gently to close that opening part. Now make the final knot to secure this join so that your work will be safe and neat. Now insert this tapestry needle from the last hole, the last center part, into the project, and now randomly insert your needle and come out of any of the stitches on the side of the brinjal. So see, I just pulled it out at any point on the on the brinjal, and then just one row above or below, just insert the needle back into the stuffing and get it out on the other side again in a random position. You do not have to calculate, so it should be exactly in this place. Just randomly pull the thread out. So if you pull it a little harder, it will give you a nice dent on the other side. And if you see, after completing the dents on the two sides of the project, again I am taking back this tail end through the center on the last row, and now to hold the shape of the dents I am pulling the tail end tightly so that both the dents will look nice and detailed. And to hold the dents in place in the shape, I am going to secure it by making a knot and holding the position tightly. And once after making the final knot, the dents will get secured and your project will be finished. And after completing the last final knot, insert the excess tail end into the stuffing and then trim the excess thread close to the project. And if you are seeing any kind of small tail ends, just poke it with the tapestry needle. And that's it. This completes your brinjal. And now let's add finishings to the project. Here I am using a hot glue gun to secure the points of the sepals to the brinjal. If you wish, you can use fabric glue as well, as this is a cotton thread, it will easily be secured. Also, I am not adding any facial features to the brinjal as I am planning it to be in a vegetable basket, and I don't want to add the eyes to make it looking artificial kind of thing. So I have not added anything, but if you wish to add a face to it, you can do it. You can use a safety eyes or you can simply embroider the facial features. So that's it. This completes your cute amigurumi brinjal pattern. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. The written pattern for this brinjal is given in the description. Do check it out. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about how your kids have reacted after seeing this project. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.